the case of the decomposed body in the suitcase, so unrecognizable that identifying it left the police baffled. A bankrupt millionaire and his daughter gave eerily similar statements. Shockingly, both later recounted completely contradictory stories, repeatedly blaming each other. However, the truth only came to light during a courtroom battle that severed the father-daughter bond, sparking public outrage. So, who is the real culprit in this murder case? Whose story is the truth? But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive notifications for new videos. This is a true case that occurred in Fremantle, Western Australia. On the morning of July 2nd, as gentle ripples stirred the Swan River, two fishermen launched their boat, preparing for another routine day of fishing. While rowing toward the middle of the river, they suddenly spotted an old blue suitcase drifting on the surface. The suitcase was damaged in several areas, appearing to have been dumped in the river for several days. With a strange intuition, the two fishermen immediately reported it to the police, suspecting something unusual inside the suitcase. Upon receiving the report, the police quickly dispatched a recovery team to the scene. When they opened the suitcase, the sight inside left them stunned. Inside the old suitcase was a human body with severe injuries to the head and face. The face was beaten so badly that it was deformed and decomposed beyond recognition. To identify the victim, the police decided to use advanced technology to reconstruct the person's appearance. After hours of analysis and sketching, they created a simulated image of a middle-aged Asian woman. During their investigation, the police found no missing persons reports matching the victim's discovery timeline. As a result, the police issued a public notice, appealing to the community for information or assistance in identifying the victim. Besides the suitcase, the police also found heavy ceramic tiles inside, intended to weigh it down in the water. Unfortunately, despite thorough examination, they still could not determine the origin or source of the ceramic tiles. Throughout the summer, the police received over 450 calls and collaborated with agencies across Asia to search for a DNA match. Despite the relentless efforts of the investigation team, everything remained at a standstill. The case of the body in the suitcase quickly became a topic of discussion within the Chinese community in Perth. Rumors circulated that the victim might have been a foreign bride newly arrived in Australia, or even an undocumented immigrant. The case seemed to reach a dead end until a significant breakthrough occurred in September. In early September, a young woman named Tiffany Wan, 27, came to the police station to report her missing mother. Tiffany's mother, Annabelle Chen, was 57 years old. Tiffany explained that she had just graduated from university in Melbourne and flew back to Perth because she hadn't heard from her mother in several days. Although Tiffany had asked neighbors to knock on her mother's door, no one answered, which further heightened her fears. Tiffany also recalled that the last time she saw her mother was on June 30th. This information immediately caught the attention of the police as it coincided with the time frame when they found the body of an Asian woman in the river. Tiffany's information provided a critical lead for the case, which had been at an impasse for over 2 months. The police immediately conducted DNA testing, and the results confirmed that the body in the suitcase was Annabelle Chen. This discovery not only identified the victim, but also reignited hope for the investigation to find the perpetrator responsible for her tragic death. Upon being informed that the body in the suitcase was her mother, Tiffany Wan was devastated and broke down in tears. Annabelle Chen was a wealthy artist, known for her elegance and discreet lifestyle. Additionally, Annabelle was highly multilingual, fluent in several languages, including Malay, Mandarin, and Cantonese. After divorcing her former husband, Ping Ban, a wealthy and prominent businessman in Singapore, Annabelle decided to move to Australia to start a new life. Their divorce in 1999 attracted media attention due to Mr. Ban's immense fortune. Following the division of assets, Annabelle received a settlement of up to $15 million. In 2000, she and her daughter Tiffany Wan relocated to Perth, Australia, where she hoped to find peace and rebuild her life after the turbulence. Mrs. Chen enjoyed a quiet life in her spacious 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in Mosman Park, located in the peaceful Meath Mews neighborhood. Her daughter, Tiffany Wan had a strong personality and always felt pampered like a princess. By 2011, Tiffany decided to move to Melbourne to pursue her studies and to gain independence, seeking space away from her mother's supervision. As an introvert, Mrs. Chen was very private and never shared details of her personal life with her neighbors. Neighbors described Mrs. Chen as an introspective woman, deeply spiritual, who often visited temples seeking peace. When she bought her house in Mosman Park in 2001, she had all the windows covered to block prying eyes and protect her privacy. Another neighbor confirmed that no one in Meath Mews knew much about Mrs. Chen's life. Every day, people would only see Mrs. Chen quietly driving in and out of her elegant home, never speaking to anyone. This may also explain why Mrs. Chen's murder went unnoticed for some time. After identifying the victim, the police quickly questioned Tiffany Wan, a University of Melbourne student and Mrs. Chen's only daughter. Tiffany was a well-behaved girl, but her life was significantly impacted by her parents' divorce. The relationship between Mrs. Chen and her ex-husband, Ping Ban, grew increasingly tense and complicated over the years. Harboring resentment after the divorce, Mrs. Chen repeatedly urged Tiffany to cut all ties with her father. However, out of love for both her parents, Tiffany secretly maintained contact with her father for 3 years without her mother knowing. By June 2016, as her important graduation ceremony approached, Tiffany wished for the presence of both her parents and her 2 half-sisters at the event. But the family's conflicts left her afraid to tell her mother directly, knowing that when Mrs. Chen became angry, no one could calm her down. Ultimately, Tiffany decided to invite her father and her half-sisters to Melbourne at the end of June, hoping everything would go smoothly. When Ping Ban and his daughters arrived, the family atmosphere quickly became tense. Mrs. 100 Rada, Drahan, Yuan. Chen was furious upon discovering that Tiffany had kept in contact with Ping Ban and had even invited him to her graduation ceremony. The 3 had a heated argument. After the dispute, on June 30, 2016, the last time Tiffany saw her mother was when Mrs. Chen left the house in Mosman Park. Mrs. Chen took a suitcase with her and was accompanied by an unidentified man of Asian appearance. From that moment, Tiffany received no news of her mother except for a single message sent to her phone. In the message, Mrs. Chen stated that she would not attend Tiffany's graduation, explaining that she had decided to travel across Australia with a friend before going to Switzerland for brain calcification treatment. On August 4th, Tiffany's graduation day, Mr. Ping Ban and his 2 daughters attended the ceremony in Melbourne. Tiffany beamed in her graduation cap and traditional gown, proudly standing beside her father. However, Mrs. Chen's absence on her daughter's important day left many people wondering. Family and friends believed that Mrs. Chen was still upset with Tiffany and had decided to travel with a friend, expecting that she would return once her anger subsided. No one imagined that, at that very moment, Mrs. Chen's body was already in the morgue, unidentified. But was everything Tiffany reported entirely true, or was there something more mysterious? Detectives quietly listened to Tiffany's account from start to finish, and they noticed several inconsistencies in her story. However, the mysteries of the case did not end there, as the police gathered the testimony of a second person. Even more strangely, Mr. Ping Ban, Mrs. Annabelle Chen's ex-husband, gave a statement to the police that perfectly matched Tiffany Wan's account. This suspicious coincidence led investigators to consider the possibility that the father and daughter might be the main suspects in the murder case. Upon conducting a deeper investigation, police found irregularities in Tiffany's bank transaction records. Shortly after Mrs. Annabelle's murder, Tiffany transferred a large sum of USD to her father. This further raised suspicions about their relationship and the possibility that they might have collaborated in the crime. Additionally, forensic experts discovered traces of Mrs. Annabelle Chen's blood in several suspicious areas in the house, including on the headboard, the television screen, and the bedroom walls in Tiffany's room. Notably, Tiffany's mattress had recently been replaced, as if someone had deliberately tried to erase evidence. Moreover, a pair of glasses identical to those of Mr. Ping Ban was found at the crime scene on the Swan River. The investigation also revealed that the heavy ceramic tiles used to weigh down the suitcase matched exactly with the tiles in Mrs. Annabelle's bathroom. This detail further strengthened the possibility that the suitcase had been prepared in the victim's own home. According to the father and daughter's statements, the last time they saw Annabelle was on June 30th, while the fishermen discovered the suitcase floating on the river on July 2nd. From these details, the police concluded that Annabelle might have been killed on June 30th. In September 2016, the police decided to arrest Tiffany Wan and Ping Ban on charges of murder. It seemed the case would conclude with both father and daughter being convicted, but during the trial at the Supreme Court of Australia in August 2018, an unexpected twist occurred. Instead of cooperating to defend each other, Ping Ban and Tiffany turned against one another. Both denied any involvement in Annabelle's murder and blamed each other with completely contradictory testimonies, making the case more complicated and prolonging the trial. At the trial, Tiffany Wan presented an entirely different account of the events of June 30th. She claimed that Ping Ban had flown from Malaysia to Perth to help her convince Annabelle Chen to attend her graduation ceremony. However, during their meeting downstairs in Annabelle's house, a heated argument broke out between the two over financial matters. Losing control, Ping Ban struck Annabelle on the head with a heavy cast iron paperweight. She recounted witnessing the horrifying scene, hearing her mother's agonized screams before she fell silent as the sound of metal striking her body echoed. After the incident, Tiffany admitted to trying to cover up her father's actions by sending continuous messages to her mother's phone for 2 months to avoid suspicion. Tiffany also revealed that she had deeply loved and idolized her father. To her, Ping Ban was a hero she could not betray as his daughter. For this reason, Tiffany transferred $135,000 to her father after her mother's death to provide him with financial support. In reality, by that time, Ping Ban was no longer a wealthy businessman. After divorcing Annabelle, he had gone bankrupt, fallen into financial ruin, and lived a difficult life in Malaysia. Meanwhile, Annabelle enjoyed a comfortable and affluent life in Australia thanks to the divorce settlement. In contrast, at the trial, Ping Ban presented a completely different version of events from his daughter. Ping Ban insisted that he had received a desperate phone call from Tiffany, expressing fear and despair after accidentally killing her mother in a fit of rage. He immediately decided to fly to Perth to help his daughter handle the situation and also to attend Tiffany's graduation ceremony. Upon arrival, Tiffany recounted to him that a few days earlier, she and her mother had a heated argument after she revealed she was still maintaining a relationship with her father. In a fit of anger, Tiffany and Mrs. Chen threw objects at each other, including the cast iron paperweight. Chen sustained severe injuries from the blows to her head and various parts of her body. Shortly after, Mrs. Chen ordered Tiffany to leave her bedroom, but the next morning, when Tiffany returned to check, she found her mother had passed away. Ping Ban testified that Tiffany had led him to the laundry room, where Mrs. Chen's body was placed in a trash bin. The father and daughter then worked together to place the body into a suitcase, packing it with bricks to increase its weight. They transported the suitcase to the Fremantle Bridge area using a scooter with a wooden board attached and dumped it into the Swan River, hoping to dispose of the evidence perfectly. After pushing the suitcase along the narrow walkway between the bridge columns, they brought it to the water's edge and slowly lowered it into the river. During this process, Mr. Ping Ban accidentally lost his balance, slipped, and fell into the water, dropping his reading glasses in the process. These glasses were later recovered by police and used as evidence to implicate Ping Ban. After finishing everything, the two quickly left the scene and returned home to clean up. The next day, Ping Ban returned to Malaysia. After his return, the disgraced millionaire texted Tiffany, consoling her and assuring her that this was merely an accident. If the matter were exposed, Ping Ban promised to take full responsibility to protect the family. Regarding the money his daughter transferred to him, Ping Ban emphasized that he did not ask Tiffany to send him money. The sum was transferred by his daughter out of her own will, as she felt pity for and admiration toward her father. Ah Ping Ban stated that he chose to lie to the police to protect Tiffany, as she was the most intelligent daughter he deeply loved. From the conflicting stories of Ah Ping Ban and Tiffany Wan, it became clear this trial was one of severed father-daughter ties. Tiffany's lawyer, Simon Freitag, SC, described Mr. Ban as a bankrupt and dishonest businessman. Freitag argued that the disgraced businessman had both the motive and the capability to murder his ex-wife for financial reasons. Mrs. Chen was a wealthy woman living a comfortable life in Australia, while Mr. Ban was drowning in debt and being pursued by creditors. Freitag also argued that the brutal nature of the murder was evidence that Tiffany could not have been the perpetrator, as she was only 25 years old, petite, and physically incapable of committing the crime. Although Freitag admitted that his client's arrogance may have offended the jury, Tiffany was absolutely not the killer. Ah Ping Ban was not the hero of this story. He was the villain who murdered his wife and tried to pin all the blame on his daughter. Tiffany's lawyer described Mr. Ban as a man devoid of morals, willing to do anything to escape his financial burdens and exploit his daughter's emotions. Conversely, Mr. Ah Ping Ban's lawyer, David Brustman, QC, fiercely countered with sharp evidence. David described Tiffany's testimony as a series of lies and characterized her demeanor in court as a complete farce. He also criticized Tiffany as being arrogant, aggressive, and disrespectful toward the jury. Brustman argued that although Mr. Ban might be a bankrupt businessman, that did not mean he was a murderer. The lawyer pointed out that after his ex-wife's death, Mr. Ban returned to Australia twice, despite knowing he was under police investigation. If Ah Ping Ban were truly guilty, why would he return to Australia? No criminal would act this way, David Brustman reasoned. According to Brustman, Mr. Ban did everything he could to cover up the crime to protect his daughter, demonstrating a father's love, not the actions of a cold-blooded killer. Meanwhile, prosecutor Justin Wally argued that both Wan and Ban were involved and had collaborated in the crime. After 4 days of deliberation, the jury ultimately ruled that Tiffany Wan did not murder her mother but had assisted in covering up the crime. In the end, the jury accepted Tiffany's version of events, deeming her account to be the truth. At the November 22, 2018 trial, Ah Ping Ban was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 20 years before being eligible for parole. Tiffany Wan was acquitted of murder but sentenced to 4 years and 10 months in prison for attempting to conceal her father's crime. Outside the courthouse, Tiffany expressed relief that the case was closed and her desire to resume a normal life after serving her sentence. Based on his sentence, Ah Ping Ban will be eligible for parole in 2036. Meanwhile, in April 2020, Tiffany Wan was released from prison after completing her sentence. It seemed that everything would settle after the verdict was announced, but public interest continued to swirl around the massive fortune left behind by Annabelle Chen. Particularly, after Tiffany Wan completed her prison sentence, the most pressing question was, who would inherit the victim's enormous wealth? According to media reports, Tiffany Wan might inherit a multi-million-dollar trust fund left behind by her late mother. However, an investigation by Wadaday revealed that Mrs. Chen had passed away in 2016 without leaving a will. This raised questions about who would benefit from her massive estate. A source claimed that Mrs. Chen had a trust fund holding real estate and land valued at millions of dollars. It was speculated that Tiffany Wan, who had helped her father dispose of her mother's body, might be the primary beneficiary of this trust. However, the truth about Tiffany's inheritance rights has not been fully disclosed, leaving the public to continue questioning. Did Tiffany truly inherit Mrs. Chen's wealth and property after her mother was murdered? This detail remains a mystery yet to be clarified by the media. What do you think? Are there more secrets in this case that have yet to be revealed? And has the trial truly convicted the right person? Or do Tiffany's statements still hold undiscovered truths requiring further investigation? Share your thoughts about this case in the comments section below. Today's case was meticulously researched, with references from reputable sources such as ABC and Straits Times, to provide the most comprehensive and accurate perspective on the events. This video concludes here. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This helps us continue bringing you meaningful content. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.
When the mother arrived at her daughter's house to clean, she noticed that the large freezer was unusual. Curious, she opened it and discovered her son-in-law's corpse inside. What was even more shocking was that for over 17 months, many family members had seen the freezer but had never once opened it to see what was inside. In fact, the victim's brother had even moved the freezer after several house moves without knowing that his brother was lying inside. The reason both families did not suspect the strange freezer was that they both mistakenly believed the man was still fleeing from debts. The body in the freezer case has shocked the entire city of Suzhou. At this point, the secret of the case was unveiled, leaving everyone astonished when they learned the reason the murderer acted. Let's unravel one of the most chilling cases in China, filled with many suspenseful details behind it. The setting of this story takes place in Suzhou City, Jiangsu Province, China. On a March morning in 2023, Mrs. Lin, as usual, went to her daughter Zhang Wuli's house to tidy up. Upon entering the house, Mrs. Lin quickly noticed something unusual. In a corner of the kitchen, a large freezer had suddenly appeared. She found it strange because the current family only consisted of her and her child, so why would they need such a gigantic freezer? Driven by curiosity, Mrs. Lin approached the freezer. Her hands trembled as she grasped the handle of the freezer door. When the door opened, she nearly died of shock at the sight before her. Inside was the frozen corpse of her son-in-law, Pan Maowei. For almost a year, she had not seen Pan Maowei and still believed that her son-in-law was working in another city. The horrifying scene made Mrs. Lin unable to contain herself, and she collapsed to the floor, unconscious from the shock. What happened to Pan Maowei? Why was he brutally murdered and hidden in that cold freezer? Since when had Pan Maowei been dead? And who was behind this gruesome crime? These questions haunted everyone and sparked endless curiosity in public opinion. Zhang Wuli, born in 1993, with her attractive appearance, was the pride of Mrs. Lin's family in Suzhou City, Jiangsu Province. With a wealthy background thanks to compensation for demolishing the old house, Jia grew up in favorable conditions and received a decent education. Not only beautiful, Zhang Wuli was also a talented, intelligent employee in the real estate field. With her charming and graceful appearance, Jia quickly established her position, achieving many significant accomplishments in her work. At her workplace, Jia met Pan Maowei, a young man born in 1991 from Anhui. Pan was ambitious, graduated from university with outstanding achievements, and quickly found success in the real estate business. Not only admired by colleagues for his intelligence and professionalism, Pan was also seen as an ideal man with a sincere and open heart. Upon meeting Jia, Pan was quickly attracted by her beauty and decisiveness. After dating, Pan and Jia were praised by friends and colleagues as talented men and beautiful women, a perfect couple. The love between Pan and Jia was not only a connection of two souls, but also a harmony in work and life. Even though Jia's family was better off financially, Pan always persisted in relying on his own efforts, not wanting to depend on his girlfriend's family's support. Pan and Jia obtained their marriage registration in 2018 and held a simple wedding on October 1, 2020. At that time, their daughter was 8 months old. Based on their abilities and diligence in earning money, Pan and Jia were able to purchase an expensive private house in Suzhou City. After getting married, Pan Maowei decided to quit his job to pursue his own entrepreneurial dream. On January 3, 2020, Pan invested $1 million to establish the Suzhou Shangwuju Real Estate Economic Limited Liability Company. This was an ambitious step in the career journey of the young man from Anhui Province. Pan Maowei held the position of CEO, while his wife, Zhang Wuli, took on the managerial role. However, their family life began to change when their daughter was born. To allow his wife time to care for their young child, Pan decided to have Jia temporarily put her work on hold. Nevertheless, their affection for each other did not fade. Every day, after finishing work at the company, Pan would quickly return home to take his wife's place in caring for their young daughter. This is considered the most beautiful and happiest time for them. The happy life of Pan and Jia as a couple was admired by many. Although Pong always tried to shoulder responsibilities both at the company and at home, Ja Muli gradually felt her life becoming monotonous. While her husband was busy with work and taking care of the children, Ja had to stay home all day, with only her mobile phone as company. The internet became a vast world where she could escape from the dull reality. Entertainment programs, movies, music, and short videos helped Ja temporarily forget the life confined within the four walls of the house. After breakfast prepared by her husband, Ja Muli would go back to bed, lying down and continuing her days of watching movies and television. But when movies were no longer enough to captivate her, she turned to browsing Douyin. It was then that a video of a handsome and charming young man singing pop music caught Ja's attention. The song he performed was her favorite, but the video ended too quickly, making her want to know more about him. Curious, Ja Muli clicked on his profile page. At that moment, she discovered that this handsome young man was live streaming. The charm of this amateur singer reminded Ja of her younger days when she was always surrounded by young men trying to impress her. However, none of them had ever made her truly moved like this singer. His elegance, talent, and appearance had attracted Ja's special attention, making her feel unusually excited. In the broadcast room, people kept sending gifts to the young man, and he continuously thanked each person by their account name. Curiosity and a bit of excitement led Ja to decide to give a small gift. Immediately after, the handsome singer read her name aloud and sent sweet thanks. Being mentioned by someone she admired made Ja Muli feel as if she had returned to her youthful days, when she used to follow stars and felt proud every time they noticed her. That excitement came not only from giving a gift, but also from feeling a special connection with the Douyin singer. In that moment, Ja felt resurrected, filled with energy, and a greater desire from these experiences. Since discovering the Douyin streamer, Ja Muli seemed to be drawn into an entirely new world. Every time she opened the video platform, the first thing she did was search for his latest updates. Each time he went live, she not only watched silently, but also commented and interacted enthusiastically under his videos. Like a loyal fan, she always encouraged, cheered, and did not hesitate to give gifts, hoping to show her sincere support. Being home frequently gave Ja Muli more time to watch live broadcasts, which helped her stand out among other fans. Of course, the streamer also began to notice her, and every time Ja entered the streaming room, he warmly welcomed her. This not only made her feel respected, but also satisfied her sense of pride. In return, Ja Muli continuously gave expensive gifts, not hesitating to spend real money to maintain her position as the big sister in the fan community. However, not long after, a new fan with the title Rich Fan appeared, shaking Ja Muli's leading position. Not wanting to lose the attention and reputation she had built, she began to spend even more, determined not to fall behind anyone. In a moment of impulse, not realizing she had gone overboard, Ja Muli spent over $51,000 on gifts for this streamer. After realizing her serious mistake, Ja Muli felt bewildered and did not know how to fix it. In her helplessness, she decided to tell Pan Moe everything, hoping to receive sympathy from her husband. Surprisingly, instead of getting angry, Pan Moe just sighed and gently comforted his wife, trying to soothe the worries in her heart. However, Moe's sincere advice did not seem enough to awaken Ja Muli. She continued to secretly shower the handsome Douyin streamer with enormous amounts of money, immersing herself in the enchanting virtual world. The real explosion only occurred when Pan Moe discovered that his wife was still sending money to an online streamer. He could no longer hold back and shouted in anger, "Do you know what you're doing? You're destroying our family." Her husband's words made Ja Muli flinch. She briefly felt fear in her heart when she met Pan Moe's stern gaze. Realizing that the situation could not continue like this, Moe forced her to uninstall the video software and demanded that she write a letter of assurance, committing never to engage with such superstitious matters online again. However, as soon as she picked up the pen, a hint of malice flashed in Ja Muli's eyes. Pan Moe's company had fallen into serious financial difficulties, accumulating debts to the point where he had to declare bankruptcy. In November 2021, when the COVID-19 pandemic erupted fiercely, many people's lives were upended. Most offices were forced to switch to remote work, and all communications depended on smartphones. Pan Moe was no exception. However, since December 2021, his parents in Anhui had been unable to contact their son. Every time they called, they only received an automated message saying he was busy and couldn't answer the call. This made them extremely worried. Jamoli, Pang Moe's wife, explained to her parents-in-law that her husband had to go out to evade debts. Although worried for their son, Pang Moe's parents couldn't do much, aside from occasionally comforting their daughter-in-law. To Pang Moe's friends, his need to lay low to avoid creditors was not surprising, as everyone knew his financial situation was unstable. Meanwhile, Pang Moe's parents felt sorry for their daughter-in-law and frequently came to help Jamuli take care of the young child. Especially during the Mid-Autumn Festival in 2022, they came to celebrate the festival with Jamuli's family in a warm atmosphere, believing that everything would soon pass. At that time, the couple did not notice anything unusual. Shortly after, Pang's parents received a message from Jamuli's phone number informing them that their son's company urgently needed $21,000 to pay off debts. Worried about their son's future during the pandemic, they did not hesitate to transfer the money immediately without asking for anything in return. However, just a few days later, another message was sent, this time Pang Moe informing them that he still owed his mother-in-law $5,000. His parents began to feel that something was wrong. They thought their son was probably staying at his mother-in-law's house to avoid debts. With the pandemic situation becoming increasingly severe and the Lunar New Year approaching, they had to accept that they could not reunite with their son during the Lunar New Year, and transferred the money immediately. Not only that, Jamuli also frequently changes her residence out of fear that creditors will come to collect money. Each time she moves, she relies on her husband's younger brother's help to carry and move her belongings, as if this is part of her plan to avoid all troubles. In March 2023, when Jamuli's mother opened the freezer at her daughter's house, she could not have imagined that the most horrifying scene of her life would appear before her eyes. Among the blocks of ice and snow was the frozen corpse of Pang Moe, her son-in-law, who had been missing for 17 months. Knowing she could not escape the truth, on the evening of March 20th, Jamuli went to the Suzhou police and confessed that she had murdered her husband due to family conflicts. For more than a year, Ja had hidden her husband's body in the freezer at their private home, without anyone knowing. Jamuli's confession immediately prompted the police to initiate an investigation, and she was detained for criminal charges. At the scene, Pang Moe's body had no external wounds, was intact and frozen. Initially, the investigation determined that Pang Moe had been poisoned, and the perpetrator was Jamuli. Not stopping at murdering her husband, she cunningly covered up her husband's death for 17 months in a sophisticated manner. Everything began when the pandemic forced Pang Moe's real estate company to close. Pang had to stay home to care for their daughter, but financial and family worries made him angry when he discovered that his wife was secretly using the alimony money to support a streamer on Douyin. Anger and tension surged, leading to increasingly heated arguments. Jamuli, who had been spoiled since childhood and was not used to enduring criticism, became even more irritated when her husband discovered her shameful actions. In a fit of anger and embarrassment, Ja decided to poison Pang during a dinner, causing his furious death. To conceal her crime, she bought a large freezer, placed her husband's corpse inside, and kept it there for 17 months. More terrifying was that Ja created a fake Pang Moe online to make everyone believe that her husband was still alive. Jamoli used her husband's phone, imitated his tone to post on social media, and kept in touch with friends and family. She also fabricated a story that her husband was fleeing to avoid debts. Not stopping there, Jamuli went even further to malign Pang's image. She impersonated Pang Moe to send flirty messages to young women, aiming to paint a nasty picture of her husband as irresponsible, flirtatious, and fleeing from the family. To fabricate the truth about the debt, she moved house twice during this period, each time bringing along a freezer containing her husband's corpse inside. The most horrifying part was that during both moves, Pang Moe's brother helped her transport the refrigerator without knowing that his brother's body was inside. For 17 months, Pang Moe remained alive on social media under the sophisticated control of his wife, Jamuli. It was only when Jamuli's mother accidentally opened the freezer that this horrifying secret was revealed, bringing everything to light. Moreover, During the time Pang Moe had to go out to evade debts, his parents had approached Jia Muli numerous times. They continuously asked their daughter-in-law about their son's whereabouts, hoping she could provide some clues about Moe's whereabouts. However, Jia Muli, with her excellent acting skills, fully played the role of a distressed wife. Each time she faced her husband's parents, she appeared to be in pain, her expression more pitiful than theirs. Jia tearfully said that she did not know where her husband was and was unsure if their marriage could still be salvaged. Jia Muli's sadness made the elderly couple even more desperate. Seeing their daughter-in-law like that, they did not know what else to say. Pang's family tried to seek help from the police, hoping that authorities could intervene and help find their son. However, since Pang Mue was not considered missing, the police could not open a case. After each such attempt, they had to return home empty-handed and with hearts full of disappointment, only able to pray that their son could overcome the difficulties and return to reunite with the family. When Jia turned herself in, Pang's parents were deeply shocked to learn that their daughter-in-law had taken their son's life. What made it even harder for them to accept was that Pang Mao's corpse had been lying in the freezer at home throughout the entire Mid-Autumn Festival of 2022. Without their knowledge, the couple had been living with endless longing, completely unaware that their beloved son had departed forever right before their eyes. After the incident was exposed, netizens began searching for the couple's posts on social media. Pang Moe was believed to have only posted on social media on truly important occasions. On Weibo, he was truly active only at 2 times, once when his daughter was born, and the second when he expressed his love for Jia Muli. On February 3, 2020, the joy of becoming a father for the first time made Pang unable to contain his happiness. For 24 consecutive days, he shared heartfelt lines about his little daughter, as if he wanted to capture every precious moment of his life. Not only focusing on his daughter, Pang Mue also expressed intense love for his wife. On Valentine's Day in 2019, he posted a heartfelt declaration of love on Weibo. "I will never disappoint you," accompanied by a photo of Jia Muli. Pang Mue, although seldom publicly expressing his affection, showed through these moments how deeply he loved Jia Muli. In contrast to her husband's sincere expressions, Jia Muli's purported Weibo account rarely mentioned family life. Instead of sharing shared memories or intimate photos, she often posted personal moments and paid considerable attention to the entertainment world. A typical example is the post on December 30, 2018, when Jia Muli shared images from Jackie Chung's concert, featuring 2 expensive VIP tickets. Jia also attracted attention when she posted images of an unexpected meeting with Hu Ge in Suzhou in 2019. According to psychologist Zhang Du, Jia Muli's post displayed an excessive admiration for celebrities. This could be the motive driving her to spend large sums on gifts for the male streamers she admired. More notably, from 2020 to 2021, Jia Muli frequently shared unstable psychological states, such as insomnia, anxiety, and feelings of isolation. Jia Muli's negative mood gradually worsened when, on October 5, 2020, she publicly cursed on Weibo, expressing explosive anger through a series of profane words. On April 21, 2022, exactly 4 months after Pang Mue disappeared, Jia Muli posted a shocking article. "In reality, we are no longer connected to each other. Moments that seemed like love were just delusions," she wrote coldly. Pang Mao's mother, Mrs. Li, appeared in an interview with the media, her eyes reddened, voice trembling when mentioning her lost son. The last time Mrs. Li saw her son was on December 20, 2021. Since then, Pang Moe disappeared mysteriously. For a long time, she believed her son was still alive, merely hiding from death somewhere. As Jia Muli claimed, her only solace was the faint hope that her child would return. But that hope was cruelly extinguished on the fateful evening of March 9, 2023, when the police announced that Pang Mawe had been murdered long ago, and the perpetrator was none other than Jia Muli. Upon hearing the news, Mrs. Li felt as if her whole world had collapsed. "My heart is shattered," she sobbed through tears. Mrs. Li's pain deepened when she discovered that just 1 day earlier, on the morning of March 8th, Jia Muli was still using her son's WeChat account to pretend that he was still alive. In a message sent to herself, Jia Muli impersonated Pang and wrote, "Next month, when the weather is warmer, come back to meet me." This message was like a knife plunging deep in Mrs. Li's pain, making her even more resentful of her daughter-in-law's coldness and ruthlessness. Mrs. Lee admitted that from the beginning, Jamuli was not the kind of daughter-in-law she had hoped for. However, out of respect for her son's decision, she accepted this marriage, hoping that Tang Mui's love for Jamuli would bring happiness. But since learning about her son's tragic death, her family fell into despair. Each passing day was a series of painful days. They lived in torment, only knowing to hope for the day when Jamuli would face the law and receive appropriate punishment. Jamuli's actions were chilling. She lived with her husband's corpse for 15 months, in the same house as if nothing had happened. This woman harbored an evil heart and a disturbingly twisted psyche. No one could understand what she was thinking during that time, but Jamuli's coldness, inhumanity, and pathological behavior horrified everyone. However, the past cannot be changed, and the guilty will be punished. But the biggest question remains: what will be the fate of Jamuli and Tang Mui's daughter? Currently, Jamuli is still in custody, and the trial has not yet taken place. According to many sources, she is very likely to face the death penalty for the heinous crime she committed. Jamuli, who once destroyed an entire family in a fit of rage, now must pay the price for her actions. "14 years ago, a shocking murder case occurred in Suzhou, causing a sensation throughout China. A girl was found drifting aimlessly on the city's lake at midnight. It turned out that the victim was the daughter of a wealthy family who lived a traditional lifestyle without any romantic relationships during her schooling until marriage. From here, the secrets of the wealthy official's upper-class life were brought to light. What surprised many more was the motive behind the perpetrator's killing of the victim. In particular, the victim's family and the perpetrator's family were said to be on equal footing, with two powerful clans engaged in a tense battle of wits before the law. What will be the ultimate fate of the perpetrator? Will justice triumph over the pressures of money and power? This case is so intriguing that it has haunted many people for a long time. Let's unravel the remaining mysteries through this video. The context of this story takes place in Suzhou City, Jiangsu Province, China. Suzhou is originally famous for its mystical beauty, like an ancient painting emerging from a fairy tale. Tree-lined, quiet, and romantic streets stretch along the banks of small rivers, winding through centuries-old stone bridges. Not only the breathtaking stone bridges, Suzhou also captivates hearts with meticulously designed gardens, rich in the essence of Chinese cultural refinement. However, in this city likened to a fairyland, there is a heartbreaking love triangle story, ending with loss of life and legal entanglements. At 0 on November 7, 2010, the atmosphere at the Wuzhong District Police Station in Suzhou City became tense when a man with a panicked expression rushed in, urgently seeking help. The man introduced himself as Zhu Jiangtao, with a voice tinged with fear, reporting that his wife, Zhang Lan, was missing. Zhu Jiangtao recounted the story with broken breaths. Around 10:30 p.m. on November 6th, Zhu Jiangtao and his wife Zhang Lan, after celebrating their 200-day wedding anniversary, went for a walk at Shaoxihu Park. That evening, the atmosphere was chilly, but warm with the shimmering lights from the roads around the lake. While they were enjoying a sweet moment, Zhu Jiangtao suddenly felt severe stomach pain and decided to go to the bathroom. Before leaving, he instructed his wife to wait on a stone bench by the lake, a place where they had sat and talked many times. But when Zhu Jiangtao returned, Zhang Lan had disappeared. At first, Zhu Jiangtao was not too worried. He thought perhaps his wife was tired and had gone home earlier. However, when he returned to the empty house and did not find his wife, he began to feel unease creeping into his heart. Zhu Jiangtao immediately called Zhang Lan's friends, but no one had any information. He continued to contact both families' parents and siblings, but no one knew where Zhang Lan had gone. At this point, Zhu Jiangtao had no choice but to run to the police station to report the missing person. At the police station, Zhu Jiangtao could not contain his fear, grabbed a police officer's arm, and demanded that they must help him find his wife by any means. After calming Zhu Jiangtao's agitated emotions, the police immediately deployed a search team towards Shaoxihu Park. Around 1 a.m., under the dim light of street lamps, Zhu Jiangtao and his relatives also participated in the search. Unexpectedly, Zhu Jiangtao looked towards the center of the lake and pointed at something floating while calling Zhang Lan's cousin, to look in the direction of the strange object on the lake. When the police approached and pulled the object to shore, everyone fell silent. It was Zhang Lan's corpse. The tragic news struck the Zhu and Zhang families like a heavy blow. Everyone was deeply saddened by the passing of Zhang Lan. Zhu Jiangtao knelt before his wife's body, weeping sorrowfully. "It's all my fault. It's my fault. I shouldn't have left her alone." The parents of both sides, witnessing this scene, were overwhelmed with grief, only able to suppress their pain and stand silently in their indescribable loss. This tragic event crushed them under the weight of their sorrow, as a child was taken away on what should have been a normal yet terrifying night. When Zhang Lan was pulled from the water, she still smelled strongly of alcohol, leading many to suspect that she might have been drunk and accidentally fallen into the lake, resulting in her drowning. However, after investigation, the police believed that Lan's death was very likely not an accident, but a meticulously planned murder. Zhang Lan and Zhu Jiangtao were a couple from affluent and powerful families, with interconnected relationships. Zhang Lan, 25 years old, was a woman raised in luxury, born into a prestigious family. Zhang Lan's father was the deputy district chief of Wuzhong district, while her mother also hailed from a renowned lineage. Zhang Lan not only inherited a refined education from her family, but was also an elegant and well-mannered woman. She always lived modestly, disliking showiness or competition, despite having every condition to shine. With excellent academic achievements, Zhang Lan was trusted and expected by her family. However, she chose a peaceful path by deciding to work in a government agency. Thanks to her disciplined training and diligent studies, Zhang Lan became the deputy head of the Employment Management Department at the Wuzhong District Labor Bureau. Her main job was managing and dispersing unemployment benefits, a stable position for a traditional person like Zhang Lan. Although her family was immensely wealthy, Zhang Lan always maintained a simple lifestyle, unpretentious, unlike other wealthy young ladies. Through a family introduction, Zhang Lan met Zhu Jiangtao, her current husband. Zhu Jiangtao, 27 years old, also came from a prestigious and influential family in Jiangsu. He was the son of Zhu Tianwen, a high-ranking official who once served as the deputy director of the Wuzhong District Labor Safety Supervision Bureau. Moreover, Zhu Jiangtao had an uncle, Zhu Tianxiao, the chairman of the Wuzhong Group, a major conglomerate in Suzhou. Wuzhong Group operates in various fields such as real estate, tourism, technology, education, and finance. With its enormous assets and growing scale, the group achieved a revenue of over 20 billion yuan, ranking among the top 20 private enterprises in Suzhou. Despite being born into an extremely wealthy family, Zhu Jiangtao is unlike other arrogant, second-generation rich. Zhu Jiangtao never flaunts or acts haughty. Instead, he is polite, kind, and sincere. Zhu Jiangtao's friends describe him as someone with a humble lifestyle, wealthy yet still building his own career. Zhu Jiangtao studied in the computer science department at Nanjing University, one of the most prestigious universities in China. After graduation, despite having a background in information technology, he chose a career in finance, stepping into work at East Bank thanks to his family's guidance. His annual salary at that time was about $35,000, but for someone from a wealthy family like Zhu Jiangtao, this amount was considered mere pocket money. He often drove luxury cars and lived in a villa provided by his family. Zhang Lan and Zhu Jiangtao became acquainted in 2009, after several meetings through family introductions. The two officially married on May 2, 2010, marking a significant turning point in their lives. The investigation into Zhang Lan's death gradually revealed suspicious details in the testimony of her husband, Zhu Jiangtao. From the beginning, the police noticed many contradictions in his words and actions. At 10:50 p.m. on November 6th, the police retrieved security camera footage from a cafe near the park, showing Jiangtao entering to use the restroom. Strangely, he stayed there for 10 minutes, then did not leave immediately, but loitered in the area with surveillance cameras. It seems Zhu Jiangtao deliberately created many movements to ensure the camera clearly captured his image at that time. This is completely inconsistent with his earlier statement that his wife had disappeared at 10:30 p.m. While his wife had been missing for 20 minutes, instead of being worried and searching, Zhu Jiangtao remained calm, as if nothing had happened. This composed demeanor raised suspicions with the police. When everyone was focused on searching for Zhang Lan in the park, Zhu Jiangtao was the first to discover a suspicious object floating on the lake's surface. However, instead of directly approaching to inspect, he led Zhanglan's cousin closer to examine it, then asked the cousin to report to the police. This behavior seemed as if Zhu Jiangtao was trying to avoid suspicion, deflecting his role in the search for his wife. Especially when Zhanglan's family received the news of her death, everyone was so heartbroken that they couldn't sleep all night, weeping bitterly over the loss. However, Zhu Jiangtao was completely the opposite, not shedding a single tear and even yawning continuously, as if he felt no sadness at all. His indifference could not hide from Zhanglan's relatives. Zhanglan's grandfather, distressed by the loss of his granddaughter, questioned him. "Your wife is lying there. Why aren't you crying and instead yawning?" Instead of answering honestly, Zhu Jiangtao responded with a challenging question. "How do you know I'm not sad?" Zhu Jiangtao's pretense was gradually exposed when the police discovered an additional important clue. Zhu Jiangtao had an extramarital affair with a woman named Zhu Lijun, aged 27. This clue helped the police gather substantial evidence indicating that Zhanglan's death was directly related to Zhu Jiangtao and his lover, Zhu Lijun. By November 8th, Zhanglan's autopsy report showed that her body contained a large amount of alcohol and sedatives. This was irrefutable evidence that enabled the police to arrest suspects Zhu Jiangtao and Zhu Lijun on November 9th for interrogation. By November 12th, Zhu Jiangtao was officially arrested on charges of murder. A day later, Zhu Lijun met the same fate. This case left many people stunned. They couldn't understand the reason why Zhu Jiangtao would murder the woman he was intimately involved with. If they couldn't live together, they could simply divorce. So why did he choose such a brutal way to end the marriage? This can only be explained by greed, selfishness, and the secrets that Zhu Jiangtao deliberately concealed behind his wife's back. Zhu Jiangtao and Zhanglan, outwardly a perfect couple with complementary traits, were actually individuals from two completely different worlds. Zhanglan was originally a gentle and introverted girl who had never experienced any romantic relationships before meeting Zhu Jiangtao. When she was a university student, she focused all her energy on studying, paying little attention to dressing or socializing. Even after becoming the wife of a wealthy man and living in a luxurious villa, Zhanglan maintained her simple habits, traveling in an ordinary car, indifferent to the ostentation of high society life. Meanwhile, Zhu Jiangtao had lived in a wealthy and powerful family since childhood and was a notorious playboy with many romantic affairs during his student days. People say that he had up to 9 girlfriends while in university. Thanks to his eloquent speech, Zhu Jiangtao always appeared in expensive outfits and was adorned with famous brand names. Zhanglan often joked with her friends by calling him LV Guy, highlighting the stark contrast between the two. However, the truth is that Zhu Jiangtao had no intention of pursuing Zhanglan from the beginning. It was Zhu Jiangtao's father who promised to give him a Rolls-Royce if he could conquer Zhanglan. At that time, Zhu Jiangtao was still in a relationship with Zhu Lijun, a woman of humble origins but with beauty. Zhu Jiangtao always believed that Zhanglan was provincial and not as beautiful as Zhu Lijun. His ex-lover, born into a wealthy family, Zhu Jiangtao always felt indifferent towards outstanding women who shared his background. Instead, he was easily attracted to wildflowers, girls of humble origins who exuded an irresistible mysterious charm. Zhu Lijun was the perfect match for his particular aesthetic taste. Zhu Lijun was born into a poor rural family. After her parents divorced, Zhu Lijun lived with her ailing mother while her father remarried, neglecting his ex-wife and daughter. Her mother suffered from severe arthropathy, often unable to walk on her own, placing an immense burden on Zhu Lijun's shoulders. Although she only attended an ordinary university, for Zhu Jiangtao, it was not Zhu Lijun's fault. He understood that his girlfriend had to care for her mother throughout her university years, and that did not diminish her value in his eyes. Despite living in difficult conditions, Zhu Lijun always maintained an optimistic spirit about the future. Zhu Lijun's experience of living in poverty was completely opposite to Zhu Jiangtao's luxurious lifestyle. This not only created an attractive difference, but also satisfied his deep-seated need for romantic love, something he had never found in his affluent life. In Zhu Lijun, Zhu Jiangtao found a sense of novelty, a special connection he had never experienced before. The love between them deepened when their parents mentioned marriage. Zhu Jiangtao was willing to marry his girlfriend from a poor background despite the difference in status. However, the relationship between Zhu Jiangtao and Zhu Lijun was vehemently opposed by his parents. They could not accept their son marrying a woman of a different class, and quickly sought ways to prevent it. Despite the strong opposition from his parents, and even his father becoming so angry that his blood pressure rose to the point of fainting, Zhu Jiangtao remained steadfast by Zhu Lijun's side. He went so far as to help Zhu Lijun transfer from the community neighborhood committee in a small town to work at a bank in the East Shanghai Development District, where he works. To prevent their son's affair with Zhu Lijun, Zhu Jiangtao's parents found him a wealthy girl, namely Zhang Lan. Seeing that Zhang Lan was gentle, simple, and came from a matching affluent family, Zhu Jiangtao's parents offered him a Rolls-Royce as a reward if he could marry Lan. Although he loved Zhu Lijun, under the heavy pressure from his family and the lure of the Rolls-Royce, Zhu Jiangtao agreed to break up with her in 2008. At this point, Zhu Jiangtao did his best to win over and court Zhang Lan to obtain the luxurious car from his father. Although deep down, he had never forgotten Zhu Lijun. In 2010, after 2 years of dating, the couple held a lavish wedding. But deep down, Dao still could not forget his past relationship with Zhu Lijun, the woman he had once been passionate about. After the honeymoon, while Lan was still immersed in the happiness of a new life, Dao secretly met Quan to resume their relationship. From then on, Zhu Jiangtao's attitude towards Zhang Lan changed completely. In front of his wife, he began to behave coldly and indifferently. Many nights he didn't come home, and if he did, it was in a drunken state. Zhang Lan gradually sensed her husband's strange changes and began to suspect him of infidelity. But without any evidence, Lan could only keep silent, not daring to confront her husband. When her concerned mother inquired about her married life, Zhang Lan tried to hide the growing cracks. She only casually mentioned that her husband, Xiao Zhu, often came home late due to busy work. She consoled herself by thinking that, with a man like Zhu Jiangtao who had a career, participating in many social activities was inevitable. Zhang Lan had no idea that behind those excuses, he had arranged an extremely sophisticated double life. Zhu Jiangtao had no intention of divorcing Lan, because marrying her brought him many economic benefits from his wife's family. On the other hand, Zhu Jiangtao still secretly maintained a romantic relationship with Zhu Lijun, the woman he had loved since university. The double life made Zhu Jiangtao feel satisfied, as he could maintain stability in his marriage while living in a passionate love with his mistress. However, that period of happiness did not last long. Zhu Lijun, who had once agreed to be a mistress in the shadows, gradually became dissatisfied. She was no longer satisfied with the position of a secret mistress, and began to exert pressure on Zhu Jiangtao to divorce Zhang Lan so they could be together openly and honorably. Meanwhile, Zhang Lan was no longer oblivious. She began to notice the presence of her love rival, Zhu Lijun, just a month before the tragedy occurred. After discovering that her husband was having an affair with his ex-lover Zhu Lijun, Zhang Lan immediately decided to file for divorce at the beginning of October 2010. However, contrary to her expectations, Zhu Jiangtao strongly opposed. It was not out of affection that he tried to hold on, but because both families were prestigious and held social status. Divorcing on the grounds of infidelity would cause both families to fall into a position of shame and lose face before the public. To preserve their reputation and dignity, Zhu Jiangtao promised to end his relationship with Zhu Lijun, temporarily persuading Zhang Lan. But those promises were merely an excuse to buy time for a traitorous man. In reality, Zhu Jiangtao had never truly severed ties with Zhu Lijun and continued to secretly meet with her. By the end of October, Zhang Lan filed for divorce once again because she knew Zhu Jiangtao could not forget his old lover. The strange thing here is that Zhu Jiangtao brought Zhu Lijun home, sat down to discuss with Zhang Lan, and promised to resolve everything within a week. If he failed, Zhang Lan could inform both sets of parents herself. Naively, Zhang Lan believed the promise and agreed with her husband. Although she gave Zhu Jiangtao a chance, Zhang Lan had no idea that danger and death were quietly approaching her. From the moment his wife discovered his affair and he filed for divorce for the first time, Zhu Jiangtao had the intention to kill. He believed the only way to get rid of Zhang Lan, without causing both families to lose face, was to have her accidentally die. When he told this to Chunlei Quan, she not only did not object but actually agreed with this dreadful plan. At the beginning of October, Zhu Jiangtao and Zhu Lijun began plotting to kill Zhang Lan. The initial plans included creating an accident, such as dropping heavy objects from a height, faking a car accident, or food poisoning. However, these plans were difficult to execute as they were easily suspected. After many failures, Zhu Jiangtao and Zhu Lijun ultimately decided to exploit the fact that Zhang Lan could not swim to assassinate her. After deciding to kill Zhang Lan, Zhu Jiangtao began planning in a detailed and meticulous manner. He did not act hastily, but went to inspect various lakes around Suzhou City. In this process, Zhu Jiangtao carefully analyzed each location with absolute precision. If Zhu Lijun was responsible for driving, then Zhu Jiangtao would observe details from the terrain to measuring the water depth. After many inspections, they decided to choose Shaoxihu Park as the location for their action because it seemed the most suitable to conceal the crime. Not stopping there, the malicious couple also conducted a series of surveys, such as the number of people passing through the park, cameras, etc. Once everything was in place, Zhu Jiangtao set November 6th as the day to carry out the crime. On the destined day, Zhu Jiangtao pretended to invite Zhang Lan to a luxurious restaurant for dinner under the pretense of celebrating their 200th day of marriage, but in reality it was only 188 days. Zhang Lan knew that Zhu Jiangtao had the wrong date, but it seemed she still harbored some hope in her husband and agreed to the appointment. During the meal, Zhu Jiangtao continuously urged her to drink alcohol in order to intoxicate his wife. What Zhang Lan was unaware of was that he had secretly slipped sedatives into her drink. According to some of Zhang Lan's friends, at the time of her passing, she was 2 months pregnant. To protect the baby in her womb, she had even stopped using essential oils. For a woman preparing to become a mother, drinking alcohol was something she absolutely avoided. However, through persuasive words and sophisticated manipulation, Zhu Jiangtao made Zhang Lan reluctantly consume a large amount of alcohol. Before long, she was sedated and fell into a state of uncontrollable intoxication. At the same time, Zhu Lijun, the accomplice, was monitoring the situation at Shaoxihu Park. Seeing that few people were passing by, she immediately sent a text message to Zhu Jiangtao, signaling that everything was ready to proceed. After leaving the restaurant, Zhu Jiangtao drove the now intoxicated Zhang Lan to Shaoxihu Park to take action. While his wife was still dizzy from the alcohol, Zhu Jiangtao gently persuaded her to get out of the car with the invitation to relax and breathe some fresh air to regain consciousness. He took her to a stone platform near the lake shore, where there was no protective railing. As Zhang Lan approached the edge of the lake, unaware of the lurking danger, Zhu Jiangtao forcefully pushed her into the cold water. Shocked, Zhang Lan thrashed desperately, screamed for help, and her pleading eyes continuously looked toward her husband, whom she dearly loved. But instead of assisting her, he simply stood there, coldly observing like a stranger. He even calmly squatted down, counting each passing minute, because Dao had heard that a person who falls into the water has the chance to survive if rescued within 20 minutes. Zhang Lan gradually lost strength. Her weak cries eventually ceased entirely, but he patiently waited until he was certain she had drowned before leaving. On January 13, 2011, the Suzhou City People's Procuratorate officially prosecuted Zhu Jiangtao and Zhu Lijun for intentional homicide. On January 28th, the first court session was opened by the Suzhou Intermediate People's Court, and during this trial, a farcical scene unfolded. Zhu Jiangtao and Zhu Lijun, two individuals who were once passionately in love and conspired together to commit murder, now stand before the court blaming each other. Zhu Jiangtao claims that he was coerced by his lover, Zhu Lijun, to murder his wife. According to him, Zhu Lijun has an extreme personality and has attempted several times to take her own life to force him not to separate. Under immense pressure from Zhu Lijun, he had no other choice but to kill his wife. In court, Zhu Jiangtao wept bitterly, trying to create the impression that he was an unwilling husband who had to take such a brutal action. In contrast, Zhu Lijun asserts that she had repeatedly advised and prevented Zhu Jiangtao from abandoning his intention to murder his wife, Zhang Lan, but he did not listen. Zhu Lijun stated that she believed Zhu Jiangtao only devised a plan to make Zhang Lan slip and fall into the water. If she had known he had pushed his wife into the lake himself, she would not have participated. On February 22, 2011, the Suzhou Intermediate People's Court pronounced the first instance verdict. Zhu Jiangtao was sentenced to death, while Zhu Lijun was sentenced to life imprisonment. Both parties appealed, and the legal battle continued. Zhu Jiangtao's family, with their wealth and power, attempted to use every means to prolong the litigation process. They invited many media outlets to participate, turning the trial into a game of justice, attempting to disrupt public opinion. However, Zhang Lan's family did not remain passive. They organized large-scale protests, bringing more than 50 people to the provincial high court's gates, holding banners demanding justice for Zhang Lan, applying pressure on the court for a swift and fair verdict. In the end, the first instance verdict was upheld despite all of Zhu Jiangtao's family's efforts. Zhu Jiangtao was executed on April 27, 2012. Ironically, despite having deep connections with many officials, including Wang Min, the secretary of the Liaoning Provincial Committee, the Zhu family could not save their son from the death penalty. Wang Min was subsequently sentenced to life imprisonment in 2017 for corruption and abuse of state power.
Robert and Sabrina Lyman were a married couple who agreed to live an open marriage, allowing each other as many lovers and affairs as they pleased. However, one day, a murder turned this unconventional marriage into a tragic tale. Robert's death brought tears to his siblings, leaving them heartbroken.
As a parent, I would never want to lose my child.
Despite deeply loving her younger brother, his sister chose to forgive the killer.
I was heartbroken for him, really. I have forgiven him for what he has done.
How can you do that?
But that's where I am.
But was such forgiveness deserved by the one who took the life of a father and a brother? Right now, let's dive into this complicated love story, filled with thrilling and captivating twists, yet to be uncovered. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified every time a new video is uploaded. This is a real case that happened in Silver Lakes, California, USA. On the night of August 17, the sky over Tehachapi, California, was pitch black, silent and desolate. It seemed like a peaceful night, but a horrifying discovery soon shook this small community to its core. A local resident accidentally discovered the body of a man inside a railroad guardhouse. As investigators entered the guardhouse one by one, their flashlights illuminated the area where the man's body lay motionless on the cold floor. The victim was identified as Robert Lyman, a railroad track inspector for the city. The usual calm of the guardhouse was now replaced by chaos, with furniture and papers scattered everywhere. Upon seeing the unusual signs, the police didn't take long to form a theory. This was a robbery-motivated murder. The news of Robert Lyman's death shocked the entire Silver Lakes community. Former Kern County detective Tommy Robbins expressed his regret. Everyone loved him. No one could imagine why anyone would want to kill Robert. A neighbor of Robert's family said he was a cheerful, friendly person who got along with everyone and didn't have any enemies. Robert's family lived in Silver Lakes, California, over 130 kilometers from the crime scene. He and his wife, Sabrina Lyman, along with their 2 young children, were known as the picture-perfect, happy family. Robert was born in 1976 in Lake Havasu, Arizona, and grew up in a family with 4 sisters, Lydia, Chris, Mary Ann, and Esther. Among his 4 sisters, he was especially close to Lydia and Chris. The 3 siblings often confided in each other about everything, from everyday matters to marriage. In the memories of those who knew Robert, he was a wonderful man. Robert's coach still vividly remembers the image of the student with a radiant smile and a persistent, enthusiastic learning spirit. Due to his family's modest financial situation, Robert used to help his parents and sisters make burritos and sell them at school. These burritos not only helped his family earn extra income, but also taught Robert the value of money from a young age. After graduating from high school, Robert moved to live with his sister Chris in Prescott, Arizona, a quaint and peaceful town. It was here that he met Sabrina, the woman who made his heart flutter at first sight and later became Robert's life partner. Their love blossomed like flowers in spring, full of passion and sincerity. Robert's friends said he was someone who was always full of energy, very optimistic, and eager to live life to the fullest. Robert's optimism and enthusiasm not only endeared him to his friends and family, but also made him an ideal role model for many young people in Silver Lakes. Not only was he an exemplary man, but Robert was also a good husband and father. The news of Robert's murder devastated his wife, Sabrina. She wept and locked herself in the house for days, refusing to see anyone. Returning to Robert Lyman's case, the situation became increasingly complicated and mysterious as no clues or evidence were left at the scene. To find leads that could uncover the perpetrator, the police began by scouring the area around the crime scene for surveillance cameras. After hours of investigation, a video from the train yard near the crime scene caught the attention of the investigators. In the video, at the time Robert was killed, a strange man with a limp appeared on the screen. Although the man only appeared briefly, he became the only identifiable suspect from the scene. Not stopping there, the detectives continued to gather more video footage from surrounding areas. A nearby company provided a surveillance camera recording, showing Robert Lyman walking along the path leading to his office, along with several other cars moving along the road. Everyone driving in the video was quickly identified, except for one man on a motorcycle, someone they have yet to identify. A camera at a gas station near the scene also provided another important piece of evidence. In the footage, they saw a figure similar to the man in the earlier video, entering the convenience store near the gas station. To push the investigation forward, the police announced a reward of up to $100,000 for anyone who provided information leading to the capture of Robert Lyman's killer. However, everything seemed to hit a dead end as no one came forward with any additional leads. A week after the murder, on September 24, a phone call changed the entire direction of the investigation. The caller was Jason Bernatene, who said that his wife, Kelly, had a close relationship with Robert and Sabrina's family. Jason not only provided information, but also revealed many suspicious messages from Jonathan, a firefighter who was having an affair with Sabrina, Robert's wife. According to Jason, in some of the messages he had read, Jonathan expressed regret and shame over the illicit relationship with Sabrina, and he sought forgiveness from God. Jonathan's confessions revealed a dark side to the life of Robert's family. Behind the facade of a happy family and the image of a perfect husband and father, Robert's real life was full of secrets that no one had ever imagined. This call not only gave the police many new leads, but also took them on a journey to uncover untold truths about Robert Lyman's life and the mystery behind his murder. The marriage of Robert and Sabrina Lyman seemed, on the surface, to be a perfect picture. Everyone around them always saw them as a happy, successful, and loving couple. However, few knew that behind this optimistic facade, Robert and Sabrina had unusual interests. Since having children, Robert suddenly changed. He gradually lost interest in the conventional life of a happy family. Instead, he began to lean toward a more open lifestyle, where the boundaries of marriage seemed to no longer exist. Robert began persuading Sabrina that they should explore an open marriage, allowing them both to freely engage in extramarital affairs. Initially, Sabrina disagreed with her husband's mindset, but she eventually became convinced, thinking it would refresh their relationship. In 2008, Robert and Sabrina decided to start an open affair, freely engaging with others of the opposite sex. Sabrina not only agreed, but also enthusiastically participated in extramarital relationships, along with her close friend Kelly. Both frequently met men living in a club, turning party nights into opportunities to fulfill their romantic adventures. These parties were not just occasions to meet, but also places where Robert and Sabrina, along with their close friends, a group they fondly called the Wolf Pack, indulged in pleasures that a married couple could not have. However, Sabrina's joy did not last long. She began to suspect that Robert was not only involved with other women, but also with Kelly herself, the close friend she once trusted. As the suspicion grew, Sabrina demanded that Robert end this lifestyle and return to the traditional values of a one-wife, one-husband marriage. However, Robert refused, feeling that an open marriage gave him the freedom he had long sought. The difference in their views on marriage left Sabrina feeling lost and lonely in her own home. She began to sink into boredom and depression, growing increasingly desperate. Although outwardly, Robert and Sabrina still appeared as a perfect couple, in reality, they were becoming more distant from each other. Robert continued to host parties and meet with friends from the wolf pack, while Sabrina grew further apart from her husband. Sabrina's sister later revealed that their adult parties at North Lake were not just casual gatherings, but places where libertine games took place, known only to those close to them. At one point, Sabrina could no longer endure it. She became tired of this open marriage. Sabrina once again tried to persuade Robert to return to church, seeking a new path for their marriage, but all her efforts were in vain. Finding no way out, Sabrina gradually turned to alcohol, and the drinks became the only way for her to temporarily forget the pain and helplessness in her heart. Amidst what seemed like the worst of times, Sabrina met Jonathan Hearn, a young and charming firefighter. Jonathan was not just a charming man. He and Sabrina shared a special common ground in their Christian faith. They quickly connected, and their relationship grew beyond mere friendship. Sabrina felt that Jonathan brought her hope and a new purpose in life that she had long lost. Jonathan Hearn met Sabrina while he was working as a firefighter. Meanwhile, Sabrina was working part-time at Costco. The image of the handsome, muscular firefighter, Jonathan Hearn, captivated Sabrina, making her heart race despite having a husband and children. The affair with Jonathan felt like a fresh breeze blowing into Sabrina's life. She was infatuated with her younger lover, despite Robert discovering the private messages on her phone and demanding she end the relationship. However, Sabrina was determined not to break up with Jonathan Hearn and continued to see him. Due to Robert's promiscuous lifestyle, it was difficult for the police to guess who might want to kill him. The culprit could have been a lover or one of their spouses. After receiving a call from John, the police focused on firefighter Jonathan, finding it odd when he sent an apology for the affair to the neighboring couple. The investigation team discovered that after her husband's death, Sabrina quickly cut off all contact with her in-laws. Not only that, but she also completely banned her husband's family from visiting her children. This surprised many in Robert's family and raised suspicions about Sabrina. During the investigation, the police decided to request a court order to wiretap Sabrina's phone, hoping to find new clues from her personal conversations. After the court approved, they began monitoring all her conversations day and night, gathering some leads. In the conversations between Sabrina and her lover, Jonathan Hearn, the couple frequently discussed religion, God, and the Bible.
Hi, God. We're on our knees for a reason, God. We have been dirtbags. We've been sinners. We've been selfish. We've sinned.
This prayer heightened the police's suspicions that the couple was plotting to kill Robert. But these exchanges couldn't be used as evidence in court. In lengthy phone conversations, Hearn often referred to stories from the Bible, comparing his situation with Sabrina's. Once, his voice became solemn as he compared them to the famous figures, King David and Bathsheba. Hearn recounted in detail the story from the Old Testament, where King David, from a distance, saw Bathsheba bathing naked on her rooftop. The image of Bathsheba, radiant and naked under the sun, stirred desire in the powerful king's heart, completely overwhelming him with lust. Knowing full well that Bathsheba had a husband, a loyal soldier named Uriah, King David still couldn't restrain his desire. He ruthlessly sent Uriah to the front lines, where the bloody battlefield would surely lead to his death. And after Uriah fell, David could easily claim Bathsheba without anyone stopping him.
The Psalms are so good. David is a lot like you and I, Sabrina. He was someone who committed adultery. Actually, that's what Psalm 51 is about. He had an affair, and then he even went on to kill the guy, sent him into battle, and pretty much had him killed off.
On the other end of the line, Sabrina was still listening, but did not respond to Hearn's words. The couple did not directly admit anything. No confession was made, but their actions became highly suspicious. Realizing the current clues were not clear enough, the investigators decided to use a bold tactic, providing false information about the murder investigation to gauge Sabrina's reaction.
The crime lab just sent me an email and said they got a good DNA sample from what they believe was a sweat drop that was on the floor. And they'll be able to get a good DNA profile from that sweat drop. It looks good. It's the best news you've gotten so far.
Really? Oh, gosh. That's great.
Sabrina's reaction quickly revealed her true nature. She immediately called Hearn on a disposable phone to warn him about the new details the police had just disclosed.
He just said, "I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of information for you. Maybe I'll have more for you Wednesday."
This action not only confirmed that Sabrina and Hearn knew they were being watched, but also exposed the couple's panic. All suspicions about Sabrina became increasingly clear. She was preparing to receive a large insurance payout from Robert's company. This led investigators to believe that Sabrina might have a financial motive to be involved in this murder plot. On November 18, 2014, Hearn and Sabrina were arrested on suspicion of involvement in Robert's death. At Hearn's home, the police found a motorcycle, a helmet, a red checkered scarf, and a backpack. All of these pieces of evidence matched the image of a mysterious man captured on security cameras in the area where Robert was killed. Furthermore, they also found a bag full of receipts, as if Hearn had carefully planned his next steps after committing the crime. Just a few days after being arrested, Sabrina was released because the police did not have enough evidence to charge her at that time. Meanwhile, Hearn remained in custody and was charged with murder. After weeks of tension, Hearn finally reached a plea deal. Under this deal, he would serve a 25-year prison sentence, but in return, he would testify against Sabrina and accuse her of being an accomplice in the plot to kill her husband. It took another 2 years, until 2016, for Sabrina to be officially arrested on charges of murdering her husband. However, she steadfastly maintained her innocence, denying all accusations from the prosecutor and claiming she was not guilty. Sabrina's trial took place in October 2017, 3 years after her husband Robert's death. Jonathan Hearn, besides being Sabrina's lover, also stood in court as both an accomplice and a witness in the case. When brought to court, Hearn did not deny the crime, but admitted that he was the one who killed Robert, while also accusing Sabrina of being the mastermind behind the entire plan. According to Jonathan's testimony, everything started after Sabrina refused his request for a divorce. Sabrina had once told Hearn that Robert couldn't live without her, that his death would come if she left him. Hearn further testified that this wasn't the first time they had tried to kill Robert. Before the shooting, they had once tried to poison Robert by lacing arsenic into the banana pudding he regularly took to work. The plot failed when Sabrina suddenly changed her mind. She called Robert, warning him not to eat the pudding. Later, she explained to Jonathan that having Robert die at work would be more beneficial. That way, she would receive the $300,000 insurance payout and a one-time pension, something a divorce could not provide her. Sabrina refused to divorce Robert, not just for the money, but also for her reputation. She wanted to maintain the image of a model wife in the eyes of the city's residents. On August 17, 2014, Jonathan meticulously planned to kill Robert. He put on gloves, wore a helmet, and rode a motorcycle to the railway station, where Robert was working in the city of Tehachapi. Hiding in the shadows, Jonathan waited for Robert to approach his truck and made his move. A gunshot rang out, and Robert collapsed to the ground. After confirming Robert was dead, he entered the station, rummaging through everything, trying to stage the scene as a robbery. Before leaving, he fired another shot into Robert's lifeless body and then called Sabrina to inform her that it was done. In court, Sabrina adamantly denied any involvement in the case, claiming that Jonathan had acted on his own. However, things took a turn for the worse when her close friend, Kelly, testified against Sabrina. Kelly testified that Sabrina had confided in her about planning to kill her husband to claim the insurance money and live a freer, more comfortable life. On February 21, 2018, after several days of trial, the court found Sabrina Lyman guilty on 4 out of 6 charges, including first-degree murder, intentional murder, solicitation of murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. However, she was acquitted of the charge of poisoning Robert. In the end, Sabrina was sentenced to 25 years in prison. By January 2021, the California Supreme Court denied Sabrina's appeal for a retrial, upholding the murder conviction. As for Jonathan Hearn, he was convicted of manslaughter instead of murder and sentenced to 25 years and 4 months in prison. The case was closed, but its impact lingered in the public's mind for a long time.
On an autumn day in 2018, the body of a woman buried in a shallow grave at a remote oil storage site shook the state of Colorado. Not far from there, police found the deformed bodies of 2 little girls in a crude oil tank, their shoulder bones brutally broken. The scene was so horrifying that the rescue workers at the scene nearly collapsed. As they investigated, authorities uncovered a chilling truth. The case was described as the act of a demon, causing widespread outrage. What was even more condemnable was that the perpetrator's relatives tried to justify this inhuman act. The house, which was the crime scene, was abandoned and became a site for curious onlookers. However, the real shocking revelation was what was disclosed behind bars, leaving the public shocked and stunned. So, who is the culprit behind this gruesome crime? Let's dive into the most thrilling details of the story in the video below. This time, the case takes place in the town of Frederick, Colorado, USA. At noon on August 13, 2018, the Frederick Police Department in Colorado received an emergency call from Nicole Atkinson. Nicole reported that her close friend and colleague, 34-year-old Shanann Watts, had mysteriously disappeared after she dropped her off at home at 1:48 a.m. following a business trip in Arizona. According to the plan, Shanann had a prenatal checkup and an important business meeting, but she did not show up and did not respond to any messages or calls. This only increased Nicole's suspicions, as Shanann, who was 15 weeks pregnant with a son, was always dedicated and responsible in her work. Unable to contact Shanann, Nicole decided to drive to her house. On the way, she called Christopher Watts, Shanann's husband, but Chris also claimed not to know where his wife had gone. Feeling increasingly uneasy, Nicole quickly called the police to report Shanann's mysterious disappearance. Police arrived at Chris and Shanann's house around 1:40 p.m., just as Nicole was also arriving. They rang the doorbell and walked around the house, but everything was silent. Shannan's car was still in the garage, but there was no sign of her or her 2 daughters. With Chris's permission, the police searched the house. Inside, they found Shannan's purse along with her keys and children's medicine. However, what was suspicious was that her phone was stuck between the sofa cushions. Shannan's wedding ring, a symbol of love and family happiness, lay quietly on the bedside table. Everything in the house seemed normal, except for the sheets that had been pulled off the bed and a pillowcase thrown into the kitchen trash. When asked about his wife's disappearance, Chris said he had seen her when she returned home at 2 a.m. Around 4 a.m., they had a heated conversation about separating. According to Chris, despite the tense discussion, they tried to keep it civil, and there was no physical altercation. At 5:27 a.m., Chris left for work, while Shanann and the girls were still sleeping at home. That was the last time he saw his wife. After a long day with no news from Shanann, the local police quickly issued a missing persons alert, seeking the FBI's assistance in the search. Shannan's husband, Chris, appeared deeply confused, claiming he had no idea where his wife and children had gone. He told the police that the last time he saw his wife was when he left the house early that morning. As the investigation team and scent tracking dogs combed the area around the house, Chris stood outside, tearfully speaking to local television reporters, pleading for the safe return of Shanann and the children. Police suspicion grew as Chris quickly became the prime suspect. His shady behavior did not escape the investigators. Police discovered that on the day Shanann and their daughters disappeared, Chris had called the girls' school to inform them they would not be attending the next school year. He also contacted a real estate company to arrange the sale of the home the family had been happily living in. This strange behavior led the police to question, where had Chris been, and what had he done during the time his wife and daughters disappeared? Police decided to extract footage from the neighbor's security camera and discovered something suspicious. The footage showed Chris loading items into his truck and driving away from the house that morning. This completely contradicted his claim that Shanann had taken the children away while he was at work. However, the footage revealed that no one other than Chris had left the house that day. Moreover, the GPS coordinates from the truck confirmed that Chris had driven to the Anadarko oil field, where he worked. On August 15th, the case took a crucial turn when police used a drone equipped with a camera to scan the oil field area. There, they discovered a piece of bedsheet that matched the pillowcase found in the Watts family home. Later that evening, Chris Watts was arrested on suspicion of being the killer, taken in for interrogation, and failed the polygraph test. The turning point in the case occurred when Chris requested a phone call with his father. During the conversation, Chris shockingly confessed to the heinous crime, admitting that he had heartlessly murdered his pregnant wife and their 2 innocent daughters. The location of the bodies was revealed, closing a dark chapter in what appeared to be the perfect family's life. The murder of the Watts family shocked the public on August 16, 2018, when police discovered the body of Shanann Watts buried just below the surface in a hastily dug shallow grave. Nearby, Bella and Cease were stuffed into 2 large crude oil tanks, their bodies deformed and reeking of heavy oil. The scene was so horrifying that rescue workers at the scene nearly collapsed. The investigation uncovered the truth behind the Watts family, who outwardly appeared to have the perfect life, living in a spacious 5-bedroom home in Frederick. In reality, the Watts family was facing financial difficulties, and their marriage was on the brink of collapse. Despite earning about $100,000 per year, they had to pay a $3,000 mortgage each month, leading them to file for bankruptcy in 2015. The relationship between Chris and Shanann grew increasingly tense, reaching a breaking point when Chris began an affair with coworker Nicole Kessinger. After that, he started to change, enjoying nights out with colleagues and avoiding coming home, ignoring his wife's calls, and spending less time with his family. The drastic change in Chris's behavior caused Shanann to become suspicious and worried, and she questioned him about it multiple times. In her final days, Shanann wrote a heartfelt letter, expressing her desire to save their marriage, hoping to rebuild their family. While on her last business trip, Shanann even texted Chris to thank him for taking care of the children while she was away. However, on the fateful morning of August 13th, after a heated argument about divorce, Chris heartlessly strangled his wife, despite her being pregnant. According to Chris, Shanann had threatened to keep him from seeing their daughters if he insisted on the divorce. In a fit of rage, Chris viciously attacked and killed his wife. Afterward, he discovered that his daughters had been strangled by Shanann, or so he claimed. Furious, Chris drove all 3 to a remote oil storage site rented by his company to dispose of their bodies. On August 21st, Christopher Lee Watts was officially charged with 3 serious counts related to the death of his pregnant wife and the desecration of his 2 daughters' bodies. Immediately after his arrest, Chris not only lost his job at Anadarko Petroleum Corporation, but was also denied bail during his first court appearance. At a subsequent hearing, bail was set at $5 million, and to be released from jail, he would have had to pay 15% of that amount. Along with the details of the crime, the truth about the Watts family's life began to unfold, leaving the public stunned. Shanann Watts was known as a determined woman, facing many challenges in her family life as their financial situation worsened. To help her family overcome the crisis, she started working as a distributor for beauty and healthcare products, building a career with an impressive income of up to $80,000 per year. She frequently traveled on business trips to Mexico and Dominica, sometimes accompanied by Chris. But behind that perfect facade, the relationship between Shanann and her in-laws grew increasingly strained. Long brewing tensions erupted when Shanann discovered her in-laws had given her daughter Cece peanut ice cream, a food to which Cece had a severe allergy. From then on, her relationship with her in-laws completely broke down, to the point where they didn't even call to wish their granddaughter a happy birthday and blocked Shanann on Facebook. Family conflicts escalated when Shanann sent Chris a long, painful message on the night of August 4th. She expressed her disappointment and anger over how his family had treated her and their children. Shanann felt isolated and forced to stand up to protect her children from the danger posed by Chris's family. She wrote, "The kids are everything to me. I have to protect them from the devil." Shanann's harsh words reflected her desperation as the situation worsened. Chris had confided in investigators that, after learning about the peanut incident involving his daughter, he considered ending his affair with Nicole Kessinger. Chris claimed he had once intended to return to focus on his family, but in reality, he never did. During Shanann's pregnancy with their third child, instead of feeling joy, Chris became increasingly cold and indifferent. Their relationship gradually grew distant as Chris became more withdrawn. Shanann did everything she could to save their marriage, but failed. On August 7th, Shanann confided to a friend that Chris had admitted he was worried about the baby, not out of love, but because of financial concerns. For Chris, 2 daughters, Bella and Cece, were enough. He didn't want another child. These revelations made Shanann feel even more insecure. By August 9th, when Chris took Shanann for her ultrasound, his cold demeanor prompted her to cancel the planned gender reveal party for the baby. Everything was falling apart before Shanann's eyes, and she clearly felt the growing distance from the man she once loved. A trip to North Carolina with the children did nothing to improve Shanann and Chris's relationship. Amid this situation, Shanann sent Chris a message, complaining that they no longer talked or shared as they used to, but Chris remained unresponsive. Everything finally fell apart when Chris confessed to having an affair with coworker Nicole Kessinger and wanting a divorce from Shanann. Nicole Kessinger, who was having an affair with Chris Watts at the time he murdered his wife and daughters, was summoned by police for questioning immediately after the crime was revealed. She claimed that she had no knowledge that Chris and his wife had not yet divorced, and that his wife was 15 weeks pregnant. In an exclusive interview with the Denver Post, Kessinger described Chris as nothing more than a liar who had skillfully hidden the truth and made her believe he was a man on the verge of divorce. Initially, Kessinger was drawn to Chris's gentle appearance, polite behavior, and his show of care. They met at work. And Chris didn't wear a wedding ring, a sign that led her to believe he was living a single life. According to Nicole, Chris told her he was completing a mutual divorce, and everything would soon be finalized. During this time, Chris and Kessinger had an intense romantic relationship. They frequently met up, went out, and enjoyed camping trips together. On August 4th, while Chris was away, Kessinger even searched online for wedding dresses, hoping for a happy future together. But all of her expectations were crushed when the truth about Chris's cruel actions on August 13th came to light. Kessinger stated that she never asked Chris to leave his wife and children, or pressured him about anything related to Shanann and the 2 girls. After Chris Watts was arrested, his parents, Cindy and Ronnie Watts, continued to stand by him, adamantly claiming that Chris wasn't the monster many believed him to be. Cindy, Chris's mother, admitted that she did not have a good relationship with her daughter-in-law, Shanann. She said that after Chris met Shanann, her son seemed to have completely changed. According to Cindy, Chris had always been a good boy, playing sports from age 5 until he was 17, without ever showing signs of anger or violence. The Watts family also claimed that Chris and Shanann's relationship was abusive, and that Shanann had isolated Chris from his parents. Ronnie, Chris's father, believed his son's account of killing his wife after discovering that Shanann had strangled their daughters. "I can't believe Chris would hurt his 2 beautiful daughters under any circumstances," Ronnie declared. When asked if Chris could kill his own children, Cindy responded with a blind faith. "I believe Shanann was more capable of doing that than Christopher. I just want to know the truth because Chris is not a sick person." In response to Cindy and Ronnie Watts' statements, Shanann's parents, Frank and Sandra Arzuchek, wrote an open letter to the media. In Frank and Sandra Arzuchek's eyes, Shanann Watts was not only a devoted mother who loved her children deeply, but also a faithful wife with a beautiful soul any parents would dream of. Shanann, with her care and unconditional love, always gave her whole heart to her children, Bella, Cece, and even the unborn Nico. Anyone who had known Shanann knew this was an undeniable truth. Even Chris Watts, who had betrayed his family's trust, couldn't deny it, Frank declared. What was truly heartbreaking was that Chris chose a dark and cold-blooded path. He not only took Shanann's life, but also cruelly snatched away the innocent lives of his children. His act of disposing of their innocent bodies in oil tanks as a means to hide his unforgivable crime was beyond any human comprehension. Chris not only killed his family, but also delved deeper into a web of lies, until there was no escaping the truth anymore. Chris's parents, in their desperate attempt to protect their son, made cruel and false statements about Shanann. No matter how hard they tried to smear Shanann, no amount of harsh and painful words could ever change the truth that Shanann was a wonderful woman and Chris was a cold-blooded killer, declared Shanann's parents. The Chris Watts case is one of the most horrifying crimes in American history, shaking society due to its brutality and unimaginable nature. Initially, Chris attempted to blame his wife, Shanann Watts, claiming that she had attacked their 2 daughters in a fit of rage after learning that he wanted to separate. However, the police immediately doubted his statement, as there was no evidence to suggest that Shanann had acted violently toward their children. The investigation and autopsies quickly revealed that it was Chris who had brutally murdered all 3. Faced with irrefutable evidence, Chris Watts confessed to the crime on November 6, 2018. Chris admitted that his 2 daughters had witnessed him strangling Shanann. To reassure them, he told them that their mother was sick, before suffocating them as well. Seeing that all 3 were dead, Chris then devised a plan to dispose of their bodies at the oil site. As part of a plea deal, on November 19th, Chris was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder, along with 48 years for unlawful termination of a pregnancy and 36 years for 3 counts of tampering with a deceased body. The cruelty of Chris Watts is a haunting tragedy of a family once considered perfect, now torn apart by greed and lies. The story did not end after Chris Watts was arrested and sentenced. Even more horrifying revelations came to light when Sherilyn Cattle, an author specializing in true crime, began corresponding with him through letters and meeting him in person. Chris agreed to let Sherilyn use his letters to write the book Letters from Christopher, which was published in 2019. However, during their exchanges, he revealed even more chilling details about the crime that he had never disclosed to the police. Chris confessed to Cattle that he had planned to kill his wife, Shanann, weeks before the crime took place. He had tried to poison Shanann with a high dose of tranquilizers to induce a miscarriage. Chris never wanted to have a 3rd child and believed that if Shanann were no longer pregnant, it would make his affair easier. Though the plan failed, Shanann became increasingly weak and tired, which was only the first step in Chris's evil scheme. As their conversations continued, Chris revealed even more grotesque details. He admitted that he had attempted to kill his 2 young daughters in their sleep before he turned on his wife. After Shanann returned from her business trip, Chris snuck into the girls' room to carry out the act, intending to prevent them from hearing the sounds of him killing their mother. Even worse, Chris believed that both girls were already dead when he returned to face Shanann to argue about their broken relationship. When Shanann said that if the marriage ended, he would never see his daughters again, Chris's rage exploded, and he immediately strangled her. In another interview, Chris told Cattle that he had at one point drugged Shanann on the night of the murder, but later changed his story, denying it. Cattle, still skeptical, believed that Shanann, a strong woman, would have fought back if she had not been drugged, but there were no signs that she had done so. After killing his wife, Chris drove the bodies of Shanann and his 2 daughters, who were still alive, to the oil site where he worked. There, he murdered his daughters once again before stuffing their bodies into oil tanks. Bella, the older daughter, even innocently told Chris, "Daddy, don't do that." Meanwhile, Shanann's body was buried in a shallow grave nearby. When Cattle asked Chris why he didn't leave his wife's body with the children, even in death, his chilling response shocked everyone. "I wanted to get them as far away from her as possible." Chris admitted that at the time, he felt so much hatred and resentment towards Shanann that he wanted to separate her from the children, even after they had all died. The Watts family home in Frederick, Colorado, once a happy sanctuary for Shanann and her 2 daughters, Bella and Cece, became the scene of an unimaginable crime in August 2018, when Chris Watts brutally murdered his wife and children. The 4,177 square foot home, with 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms, which once brought warmth and hope to the family, now only evokes dark memories. Purchased by the Watts family in 2013 for nearly $400,000, the home had a stunning view of the Rocky Mountains, but now stands silent and cold, a symbol of pain and guilt. After the murders, the house was left abandoned for nearly 4 years, uninhabited and slowly descending into loneliness. Passers-by in the area were often drawn by morbid curiosity, with many stopping in front of the house just to take pictures. Some even took selfies in front of the house, which was disgusting, shared Sam, a neighbor of the Watts family. Interest in the house increased after the release of the documentary American Murder, The Family Next Door on Netflix in September 2020. Haunted by the massive debt after agreeing to pay $6 million to Shannon's family, Chris defaulted on the mortgage, and the house was foreclosed. By 2022, after years of abandonment, the house was finally sold for $600,000. However, the haunting memory of its bloody past remains, turning the house into an unforgettable symbol for many in Colorado.